You wake up. Before you've even had breakfast, you reach for a toothbrush. 2 minutes. Fluoride toothpaste. Running water. It feels automatic, but now imagine waking up 20,000 years ago. There is no toothbrush, no toothpaste, no dentist, no mirror, not even a word for cavity. Yet, when archaeologists examine many prehistoric hunter-gatherer skeletons, they often find something unexpected. Their teeth were sometimes healthier than ours. That sounds impossible. Today, nearly 3.5 billion people suffer from oral diseases, according to the World Health Organization. Tooth decay is one of the most common diseases on Earth. So, how could people who never brushed their teeth avoid the problems that fill modern dental clinics? The answer has almost nothing to do with brushing and everything to do with the life your body evolved for. By the end of this story, you may never think about your own toothbrush the same way again. In 1932, American dentist Weston A. Price began traveling across the world. He visited isolated communities in places like Alaska, the Swiss Alps, Australia, and Africa. Price wasn't searching for ancient humans. He was searching for something else. He wanted to understand why modern dental disease seemed to be increasing so rapidly. Wherever he found communities still living on traditional diets, he noticed the same pattern. People often had wide jaws, straight teeth, very few cavities. Then something changed. As processed flour, refined sugar, and industrial foods entered these communities, tooth decay appeared within a single generation. Price's conclusions remain debated today, especially regarding nutrition. But one observation has held up remarkably well. Diet changes teeth. That same idea becomes even clearer when we go much further back in time. Long before farming, long before villages, back to the hunter-gatherers who lived through the last ice age. One of the most famous examples comes from Gough's Cave in Somerset, England. Around 15,000 years ago, small groups of hunter-gatherers sheltered inside this limestone cave near the end of the Ice Age. Archaeologists recovered dozens of human remains. Among them were surprisingly well-preserved teeth. Despite lives filled with hunting, harsh winters, and constant physical danger, many individuals showed remarkably little evidence of the widespread cavities common today. Their teeth weren't perfect. Years of chewing tough meat, roots, seeds, and dried plants had worn them down dramatically. Some teeth were ground almost flat, but decay itself remained relatively uncommon. At first, researchers thought this was simply because prehistoric people died young. Less time meant fewer cavities. It sounded reasonable, except there was a problem. Even older adults often showed fewer cavities than modern people much younger than them. Age alone couldn't explain it. Something else was protecting their teeth. The clue wasn't hiding in the teeth. It was hiding inside their food. Your mouth is never empty. Right now, as you listen, it contains hundreds of different species of bacteria. Scientists estimate that more than 700 bacterial species can live inside the human mouth. Most are harmless. Some are even helpful. Only a small number actively contribute to tooth decay. One of the most famous is Streptococcus mutans. This bacterium loves one thing: sugar. When sugar enters your mouth, these bacteria rapidly begin breaking it down. As they feed, they release acid. That acid slowly dissolves the enamel protecting your teeth. Given enough time, cavities begin to form. The process is simple: bacteria, sugar, acid, but remove one of those three ingredients, and the entire equation changes. For almost 95% of human history, there was very little refined sugar. There were no soft drinks, no candy, no breakfast cereal, no chocolate bars waiting at a checkout counter. Sweet foods certainly existed: wild berries, seasonal fruits, occasional honey, but these were rare, unpredictable, and often available for only short periods each year. The Hadza hunter-gatherers of northern Tanzania, one of the world's best-studied traditional foraging societies, still provide valuable clues. Researchers, including anthropologist Frank Marlowe, have documented diets centered on meat, fibrous tubers, baobab fruit, berries, and honey. Honey is highly prized, but it isn't eaten every hour of every day. Instead, availability depends on seasons and successful searches. For prehistoric humans, sugar wasn't constant. It was an event. That difference matters enormously. Modern mouths are exposed to sugar again and again and again. Each exposure feeds acid-producing bacteria. Each exposure extends the attack on enamel. Your toothbrush helps interrupt that process. Ancient humans rarely needed that interruption in the first place, but that still doesn't explain everything, because some hunter-gatherers ate plenty of sticky foods. Some even consumed honey regularly, and yet their mouths often remained surprisingly healthy, which means something else was quietly working in their favor. Not inside their diet, inside their jaws. Your teeth do not exist on their own. They grow inside a jaw that is constantly responding to the forces you place on it. Every bite, every chew, every pull of tough meat or fibrous roots sends tiny mechanical signals through the bone. Over months and years, those signals shape how your face develops. That idea has fascinated scientists for decades. One of the leading researchers is Professor Daniel Lieberman of Harvard University. In his work on human evolution and biomechanics, Lieberman argues that the modern human face has become noticeably smaller than that of our prehistoric ancestors, not because evolution suddenly changed our genes, but because our daily lives changed the forces acting on our jaws. Hunter-gatherers rarely ate soft food. Imagine chewing dried venison, crunching roasted roots, grinding wild seeds between your teeth, tearing apart cooked plants with thick fibers. This wasn't a 5-minute meal. Ethnographic studies suggest that traditional hunter-gatherers often spent several hours every day chewing food that demanded real effort. That constant mechanical stress encouraged the jaw to grow wider and stronger during childhood. A wider jaw meant more room. More room meant teeth could erupt in better alignment. Straight teeth are easier to clean naturally. Food is less likely to become trapped between them. Bacteria have fewer protected places to build thick colonies. Compare that with today. Many children eat soft bread, yogurt, mashed foods, pasta, processed snacks, and sugary drinks from an early age. These foods require remarkably little chewing. The muscles of the jaw work less. The bones receive fewer growth signals. By adulthood, many mouths simply don't have enough space. Wisdom teeth become impacted. Front teeth crowd together. Dentists often remove teeth just to create room. Ironically, prehistoric humans almost never needed orthodontists. Not because their genes were better, because their environment was different. But here's where it gets stranger. Archaeologists have found that this pattern changed incredibly fast, not over tens of thousands of years. Within only a few thousand, the turning point arrived around 12,000 years ago, not with brushing, with farming. In the Fertile Crescent of the Middle East, people began cultivating wheat and barley. Over time, agriculture spread into Europe, Asia, Africa, and eventually much of the world. It transformed everything. Villages appeared. Food became more predictable. Populations exploded. But the human mouth paid a price. One of the clearest examples comes from the Neolithic archaeological site of Çatalhöyük in modern-day Turkey, occupied between roughly 7,100 and 5,700 BCE. Thousands of skeletons have been excavated there. Bioarchaeologists noticed a striking trend. Dental disease became dramatically more common than it had been among earlier hunter-gatherers. The reason wasn't mysterious. Early farmers depended heavily on grains. Grinding stones turned wheat into coarse flour. That flour became bread and porridge. Unlike wild meat or fibrous plants, cooked starch sticks to teeth. The bacteria living in the mouth quickly convert starch into sugars. Acid production increases. Plaque thickens. Cavities become more frequent. Tooth loss rises. Dental abscesses become common. Agriculture fed civilizations. It also fed oral bacteria. Research led by evolutionary biologist Alan Cooper analyzed ancient dental plaque preserved on prehistoric skeletons. His team's findings showed that the bacterial community inside the human mouth changed dramatically after farming spread. Then it changed again during the Industrial Revolution when refined sugar and white flour became everyday foods. Your mouth still carries the history of those revolutions. Every meal influences which bacteria thrive. Every snack reshapes a microscopic ecosystem that has been evolving for thousands of years. Except there was another surprise hidden inside prehistoric mouths. Some of the oldest evidence of dentistry doesn't come from civilization at all. In 2017, researchers studying human remains from Riparo Villabruna in northern Italy made an extraordinary discovery. The skeleton belonged to a hunter-gatherer who lived about 14,000 years ago. One tooth contained a cavity. That alone wasn't unusual. What made the tooth remarkable were tiny parallel scratches inside the hole. Under powerful microscopes, scientists realized these marks matched deliberate scraping with a sharp stone tool. Someone Someone had opened the cavity. They had cleaned out decayed tissue, not with metal instruments, not with anesthesia, but with carefully shaped flint. It may represent one of the earliest known examples of therapeutic dental treatment ever discovered. Think about what that means. Hunter-gatherers understood that pain could sometimes be relieved by removing damaged material. They had no knowledge of bacteria, no germ theory, no microscopes, yet observation had taught them something important. Certain actions reduced suffering. Human intelligence wasn't waiting for civilization. It was already solving problems. But dental care wasn't limited to tools. Evidence suggests prehistoric people may also have experimented with plants. Throughout history, hunter-gatherer societies have chewed aromatic twigs, medicinal leaves, tree resins, and bark with natural antibacterial compounds. Some modern chewing sticks, such as those made from Salvadora persica, contain chemicals that reduce bacterial growth. Whether Ice Age Europeans used identical plants remains uncertain, but archaeological residues and ethnographic comparisons suggest that prehistoric people often understood their environments far better than we usually imagine. They didn't have toothpaste, they had ecosystems, and sometimes ecosystems were enough. But even with healthier diets, stronger jaws, and occasional treatments, prehistoric teeth still carried the marks of an extraordinarily difficult life. Look closely at the teeth of a prehistoric hunter-gatherer and you won't see perfection. You'll see survival. Many Ice Age skeletons show teeth worn almost flat. The chewing surfaces that dentists expect to see are often gone, ground down by decades of use. To a modern dentist, that level of wear might seem alarming, but for prehistoric humans, it was almost unavoidable. Their food contained tiny particles of stone from grinding tools, wind-blown dust, and gritty soil that clung to roots and tubers. Even after cooking, meals were rarely cleaned by modern standards. Every bite acted like fine sandpaper. Over thousands of meals, enamels slowly disappeared. Yet worn teeth are not the same as decayed teeth. Wear is mechanical. Decay is biological. One comes from friction. The other comes from acid-producing bacteria. That distinction helps explain one of archaeology's most consistent findings. Hunter-gatherers often experience heavy tooth wear, but comparatively fewer cavities than the farming populations that followed them. Researchers have documented this pattern across sites spanning Europe, Africa, and Asia. The transition to agriculture didn't suddenly make teeth weaker. It changed what the bacteria inside the mouth were eating. By the time refined sugar became common in Europe during the 18th and 19th centuries, tooth decay increased even further. Industrial food completed a process that farming had started thousands of years earlier. In a sense, your mouth still remembers that history. Every time you eat, trillions of bacteria respond within minutes. Some help protect you, others wait for frequent sugar and starch. Your toothbrush is not fighting nature. It's compensating for an environment your ancestors never experienced. That doesn't mean prehistoric people had perfect oral health. Far from it. Some developed painful infections. Some lost teeth through trauma. Others suffered cracked enamel from years of chewing hard foods or using their teeth as tools to soften hides, grip fibers, or hold objects while crafting weapons and clothing. Archaeologists have found grooves on ancient teeth that likely formed from repeatedly pulling plant fibers or animal sinew across them. For many hunter-gatherers, the mouth wasn't just for eating. It functioned as an extra hand. Every scratch tells a story. Every worn surface records thousands of ordinary moments that disappeared tens of thousands of years ago. And perhaps that's the most surprising part. When you think about prehistoric humans, it's easy to imagine that they survived because they were tougher than you. But the archaeological evidence tells a different story. They weren't protected by better medicine. They weren't saved by cleaner mouths. They simply lived in a world that placed different demands on the human body. Their diet shaped different bacteria. Their food built different jaws. Their daily lives created different teeth. The toothbrush sitting beside your sink is an extraordinary invention, but it exists because your environment changed faster than your biology could. For almost 95% of human history, humans lived as hunter-gatherers. Your teeth evolved in that world, not in one filled with soft bread, sweet drinks, and constant snacks. So, the next time you brush your teeth, remember this. You're not correcting a flaw in human evolution. You're adapting an ancient body to a modern world that it was never originally designed to inhabit. And every stroke of the brush is a quiet reminder that your mouth still carries the history of the last 300,000 years.